Christianity by the Manic Street Preacher. Ever since that fateful day, mankind has tried to come to terms with its terrible deed. Did God come to earth only to bleed? Did he have nothing much to teach us? Things for us to learn? Or did he want us to become more like him in every way? I think he came and died to show us what we are capable of. What innocence, given the chance, we would destroy. Do they not say that his death redeemed us? Because that makes our crime easier to bear? Saviour came and went, his earthly kingdom was thus denied. But Christ looks out at us from the eyes of every newborn child. He has the potential for greatness our education has belied. Jealousy, resentment, always slaughters what is high and wild. Every life, a new crucifixion. Every schizophrenic, a new crucifixion. We need to stop our Messiah killing now before we meet imminent extinction. He came to teach us that God is inside. Now we all fall down worshipping him, and our petty selves deride. If, like Jesus, we could accept prostitutes as wives, living our lives, practicing yoga and tantric meditation, asceticism, iron will, and indulgence perfectly entwined, we could come to know the same old salvation and redeem what has been hitherto falsely maligned. Becoming ourselves and drawing water from deep wells. Mankind, finally curb your herd-like mentality. Christianity no longer for the faint of heart. He said he came to bring the sword. Hark. Listen to my word. He You must oppose and outwit a mad, murderous army of all the rest to follow him. So that's the opening poem to my book. And Manic Street Preacher epithet. You can probably see how it's quite fitting. I don't know, from what you may have heard from these lectures so far. And I live literally like about, I don't know, 200 meters away from where Richey Edwards, or Richey Manic as he was known, came from, who was, the member of the Manic Street Preachers, the band, who, well, he's the one who disappeared, perhaps into the he was last seen at the Severn Bridge. The Severn Bridge, crossing over to heaven, perhaps, but hopefully he's still around and enjoying his dotage here on Earth, in evading the limelight. And yeah, it's very it's very nice to I don't know, have that as part of the local kind of heritage, recent history, because yeah, although I'm not a huge fan of their music, but I do really like a few songs. It's inspiring that well, I mean, it's a very poor area where I live, right? It's very kind of economically impoverished, and it's the old mining area of South Wales, which of course is famous for kind of the 80s. I don't know, shutting down of the mines, and by Margaret Thatcher, and it's a very kind of beaten down kind of area in many ways, and the people are quite pessimistic about life. Um, and well, so it's real sort of rags to riches story with the Manic Street Preachers, and they were also, it's really admirable that they were a very kind of politically engaged group. They really wanted to do good, and were passionate about improving about saving humanity, improving humanity or society. They were very ambitious, this very sort of beaten down origins in some ways, and you can see that when if you hear them in interviews. I mean, there's a fragility. I mean, yeah, if you listen to Richey Edwards, Richard Manic, I mean, he's the most kind of like outwardly sort of good looking and kind of like well constituted, handsome, quite handsome, but also but with quite a small cute little nose. Um, but but and then he's he's the most sort of like the most kind of vulnerable and sensitive guy in his persona, and the way he his manner in his interviews. Um, um, and yet, they were very, they were quite fiery and really, quite ambitious in wanting to change society. I think that's a very admirable combination. It's the meek shall inherit the earth situation. But also, he meant it's sort of like meant quite. I don't know. I read into him like that. He was very kind of strong-willed kind of character. Although, well, I mean, obviously they must have been quite strong-willed to actually to achieve the success they did, um, and achieve quite a lot. But I'm also thinking of how he was famous for kind of mutilating himself. The the picture of his arm, which he showed to like one of the music magazines. He was somebody questioned his sincerity. One of the reporters questioned his sincerity, so he carved with his penknife or with his knife the words "for real" into his arm, and it wasn't just like a bare like minimum like like sculpture there that he made in his arm. He really was very generous, and he could hardly have done more to to really he didn't stint, in gouging those letters in his arm. It's very brave. Very brave and very foolish. So, I mean, I don't know. I read into that. I don't know. I don't see it as like some kind of like, I don't know, compulsion or that this was just some kind of sick, pathological deed or an individual, who, is worthy of only, pity or something like that. Well, I mean, I think, well, could I do that? Well, no, I can't even give myself like a little scratch on the arm. Yeah, I'm incapable of anything like that. So I mean, I think I don't know how could he possibly, withstand the pain of doing that and the natural, I don't know, human like instincts. I think this is a very determined and in some ways admirably committed individual, a strong-willed individual. Although obviously there may have been some sort of suboptimum pathological element involved as well, but that's art. That itself is art, and it seems we sometimes do have to. We seems in nature of humanity that people tend to actually, unfortunately, perhaps have to suffer and make some kind of sacrifice or other to demonstrate their sincerity, um, and then so suffering for a cause or suffering in certain respects can then be valuable and redeemed in some way because people do look on it differently. Will they will tend to give it some kind of respect, well they should. I mean, if they don't think he's for real after doing that, I mean, that's even sadder. I mean, it's sad that he had to do it, for his own validation. But then if people just scoff at it and label it mental illness, well, that's even sadder. How do you demonstrate sincerity if even suffering for a cause is not is just passed off as mental illness? It puts you in a catch-22, double bind situation, which just makes everything even worse. I mean, under better conditions, you'd think there would be an already present, understanding and communication, channel of communication open between, the individual and society, whereby they did not have to resort to extreme acts of, of demonstration, like that, to be heard and to prove one's sincerity. It should just be easy. You just simply, say how it is, and people believe you. and they take it on board, and they alter their course slightly, and we all do things with each other's benefit in mind. But as it is, there's kind of like a system which is built on, so much denial. There's so much denial in humanity, in the world, in society, generally, and there, has been for as long as I'm aware of. People, don't want to believe the truth about others, and they won't look for it. Parents won't look for the truth about their children. Even they'll just, rest, preferring some kind of false image of even the people around them, even their own family, even their children. Rather than seek the truth. And if the truth does start to come out, or people do try to, make moves to present the truth, well, there will usually then be resistance. People will find the truth painful. And instead of dealing with that pain and going through that pain process for growth, for the sake of growth, they'll actually try to suppress the emergence of that truth just because it creates a temporary discomfort and pain and tension which they don't want to tolerate. So there's a culture of denial, all around us, everywhere. The world is saturated with it. And people obviously like this guy, Richey Manic. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that this is like Richey Edwards is like, and the rest of the Manic Street Preachers. They are like the top 0.0001% of South Wales. Obviously, they're like the most. They're very. They were enormously successful. They made stars of themselves. So these are the most functional people in the whole area, and it's not just South Wales. I'm not saying South Wales is a very impoverished area, and it does have some some very low self-esteem issues in some ways. But it's not just South Wales. I mean, it's the whole of Britain, and it's the whole of Europe, it's the whole of the world. As people go, these guys were very, very successful. And yet, one of them feels so invalidated and disbelieved about his own truth that he has to carve the words "for real" into his arm in a complete bloody pulp, making a complete bloody pulp of his arm. So I mean, I kind of deduce partly from that. I deduce that it's only the strongest ones who are even capable of bringing up presencing, even in a distorted and tormented and partial manner, their own, making themselves heard at all, presencing what they see is the complete disconnect between their own kind of inner truth and who they are and society. Well, one can also make the argument, and the other side of the coin on this issue is that it's the strongest ones who have the most kind of like exotic needs, and that they're exotic hothouse plants who actually are more delicate than others, and their needs are kind of more delicate. So for that reason, they're often kind of at war with their environment and society, and that's what gives rise to this torment. And the feeling of not being understood. So there is that aspect of the dynamic, but I think both are true. Both are very true, and it's equally or even more true that it's the denial is saturating the whole culture, and everyone feels it, whether you're a great artist or just somebody who just the average individual. Affects everyone, and like I say, it's the strong individuals who are even able to manifest it, even in a distorted and tormented light. So I think that aspect and rule still does very much apply as well. It's both. I mean, just to be a bit more specific, because you may not already know what I'm talking about. It's abstract at the moment, but well, I mean, it's getting worse and worse. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. What I'm talking about, the problem, it seems, because I mean, it's not the most subtle example, but it's the most obvious and relates directly to everything I talk about. Just the way psychiatry treats people or treats young people, labeling with them some kind of supposed disease and giving them pills, which supposedly treat this disease. Well, this is not what human beings want. They want to be seen as special. They want to be understood and dealt with as a person, not a chemical machine. A person is somebody who has thoughts and feelings, which have to be taken on their own terms. And taken on their own terms, rather than treated as a symptom and just manifestation of a chemical imbalance. That is complete invalidation of the person. It's like saying, Van Gogh, all his art was just a symptom of his disease. Imagine, just think how invalidating that is. It's it's a sly form of invalidation. Do you think Van Gogh would feel better and would help him to heal to say that all his art, which he put all his passion into over his whole life, it was just a sick product of a sick mind and a symptom of disease, and we can help him. We've got the solution. Just take these pills, and you won't have these horrible symptoms anymore. It's I've just said it as it is, but the scale of what I'm talking about is belied by the words that I've just used and to describe it. I mean, this itself, this turning of a man from a mountain into a mouse is, an absolutely epic subject for art, which could be inexhaustible. It's not it 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 encapsulates so much of the human condition, just in this insight that I've tried to convey here. I mean, human beings do not want to be reduced to the symptoms of chemical imbalances in their brain. That is the most unhealthy thing for them. just having to face that kind of image of them being put out there or foisted onto them. Human beings aspire for grandeur and dignity, and they dream of being gods. That's that may not be totally always have the best outcomes, perfect outcomes. There's a fatality, to human nature. Problems occur. A man isn't necessarily a god, so dreams of being a god, well, that can make him unhappy to some extent. It's in itself, but it's far healthy. It's far healthier to to continue dreaming of being a god, and at least have the pleasure of one's own fantasy, and still have a moderate reflection of that dignity, in one's life, by way of aspiration. Then to have his inner longings totally squashed out of him, or and constantly have it constantly said to him and pressured into him that this longing is is itself a disease, and the healthy thing is to take these pills. Why is it such a disease to to aspire to be a god, or to aspire to higher dignity and to have dreams, to be a movie star? Why is that so unhealthy? Everybody wants it. Everybody this is how human beings really are. It's not more healthy to take a pill. It's much more healthy to legitimize your own desires for for strength and dignity, and maybe moderate them somewhat in line with reality. That's infinitely more healthy and has better outcomes, because it actually does produce success. I mean, you sanctify success and divinity and power, and that helps you strive towards it and achieve it to some extent. So it it has some very positive aspects. And so how does it improve it? Just completely ignoring that and ignoring these human aspects, or even pathologizing them, or and just saying the solution is to take this pill, and it doesn't improve the situation at all, because the most obvious thing is that these pills are actually poisonous. They'll make you feel worse, and they won't improve you. And if they're having any positive effect whatsoever, it's probably placebo. It's psychological anyway. And then you still have to live your life. You go about enjoying existence, and then how you enjoy existence is always going to be determined by what your life really is. It's not going to be determined by taking some pill. Reality is too strong anyway. I mean, you cannot create ecstasy and happiness by taking a pill. Probably unless you go all the way. You have to go all the way, which means you completely renounce life. There's no room for for living, for human being, for ordinary life, or the human life as we know it whatsoever, if you go down the route of pills and artificial highs. Because whatever pills you take, as long as you're a living flesh human being, going about the world, 24 hours a day, existing 24 hours a day in a human body, well, your state of mind is going to be conditioned by the actual nature of your reality, of what you're doing, and how it compares to your ideals, your fantasies. So, I mean, telling somebody that the pill is the answer, and directing them in that way, all that does is trick them into being a collaborator in crushing their own dreams. It's a continuation and radicalization of what has been identified by certain thinkers like Nietzsche, whereby the individual aspiration for greatness is being torn down and diminished and crushed by the group and its poisonous ideologies. It's an exacerbation and radicalization of that. It's an attempt to instilled an even deeper chemical level the diminishment of mankind and the rejection and keeping them away from their desire for greatness and um, individuation from the group, um, and fulfilling their true nature.